let's start back at 2014, 2015. So this is kind of when I started to get into fitness. And I'm sure a lot of you were around that time too. And this is the time of your clean eating, of your cardio is everything, of carbs are bad. And look, I know that carbs are bad still circles around here, but that was definitely huge back then. No days off, thigh gaps. And for me, I always remember when I first started, my screensaver on my phone used to be Candace, the Victoria's Secret model, because she was thin and she had like a thigh gap, and I was like, wow, that's what everyone wants to look like. There was no such thing back then as like chicks with muscle, like girls with muscle. Girls didn't lift like that, you know? When I first started out, it was like all pump classes. I used to work in North Sydney in HR, which I'll go into, but on my lunch break, I just used to go do a body attack class, body pump class, and like you would never think to be lifting over like 5 kilos in those classes. So I feel like it has definitely shifted, which is really cool to see. For me, I took health and fitness extreme. I was about 10 kilos lighter than, not right now, but my usual, I was about 49, 50 kilos. So that is really small for me because I lost a lot of weight doing the things that we probably would have deemed were right. I was training 7 days per week. I was probably doing like 15, 20,000 steps a day. I was doing cardio. I was training, as I said, like 7 days per week. I was eating 1,000 calories. And my body, after a while, it really started to shut down. I started to like lose my hair. I was a little bit frail. And I don't know, I had like a light bulb moments over that time as well and thought, this can't be the way that people get results. Like, how are those amazing people that I'd see on social media, like, how are they suffering like this to get in that position? So I think I did, obviously, like I loved health and fitness back then. I really did. But there was just no education back there. Like, we are so blessed to be like you guys who are up and coming into the industry, to have access to the people that you do right now, or social media and things like that, where there is a lot more education than there ever was before. So 2015 for me was when I first started, and I'm just going to skip to this next one because these were the things that my life revolved around. So no days off. Like, God forbid you would ever take a day off, because you would think that all your progress was ruined. You would think if you weren't training 6 days a week, or I remember thinking if every morning, I used to live in North Sydney, if every morning I didn't walk over the Harbour Bridge and back, which I did every morning for like months, if I didn't do that for one day, my step count wouldn't be up and like I would be going backwards. So there's that one. The next one is nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, and that's a very 90s thing. I'm a 90s baby, so that was definitely, Kate Moss said that one. Sweat is fat crying. Some of these I'm just like, oh, how did these ever circulate? Cheat days, and that used to be a big thing. Like, I used to live for the weekend cheat. And it's because you were eating so clean every single day. I used to prep my chicken and broccoli or my fish and broccoli, take my little Tupperware thing to the office and sit there and eat like the most putrid meals. And then it just meant that you were hanging for the weekend. And you'd probably eat 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories in that one meal, but you didn't really know any different. All or nothing approach, this is another one. I think a lot of people still are either all in on something or then you're nothing at all. You're 99, 100%, and then you fall off, but then you're nothing. So that's also still a really big one. No pain, no gain. If you're not working out hard enough, if you're not completely sore and whatever after your sessions, then you're not making progress, you're not building muscle, etc. That's another one. And then rest is for the weak. So I literally used to live my life by all of these rules, and I think a lot of people used to as well. Now today, there's a lot more education out there, so I feel like it has really become the rise of flexible dieting, and I feel like that's what really saved me from the early years. It was learning so much more about nutrition, and I actually think it was Mark that kind of brought me into this whole world of flexible dieting. And when he prepped me, I was like, what are all the, like, you can eat like a donut or something and still look like that. And I just remember thinking, like, you don't have to eat like these boring basic meals all the time to be competing, to be doing this, because if you've got that understanding about like calories in versus calories out, then it all kind of falls into place. So food is fuel. That's another thing, because I was essentially starving myself back then. You weren't performing at the level that you wanted to. How could you ever get stronger? How could you ever build muscle if you weren't adequately fueling your body? So that's why I was literally, even though I was doing all the work in the gym, my nutrition wasn't on point. So they just never matched up. I'd never get to where I wanted to be because I wasn't fueling my body. Weights training. And I think the older I have gotten, the more it's become not just about aesthetics. So you train now because obviously to be stronger, but then for later in life too. And even being pregnant at the moment, I've really owe weight training to having like a strong foundation to be able to still carry on and do the things I love. And also back when I had my surgery in 2020, my bowel surgery, recovering from that so fast, I credit to having like a strong foundation. You've built muscle, and like freak accidents can happen whenever. So having that support for your body, so building muscle for life, not just for aesthetics. These days, I find it really funny too. Instead of thigh gaps, we have things like muscle mummy. We have girls wanting or having like a huge obsession with glutes, and now we call them dump trucks apparently. An abundance of information, but then there's also a lot of misinformation too. So when it comes to the misinformation, social media is just a breeding ground for that, because there really is no barrier to entry for people to be posting on social media. So that's why we see there's obviously experts in the field, but then there's anyone can write anything on there these days. So misinformation really spreads like wildfire on there. When I first started, how would I get my advice? Bodybuilding.com or magazines. And both of these were very, I find, extreme in a lot of ways. So bodybuilding.com I felt was your typical bodybuilder, dieting, training, and that is where, like in my early years, I got a lot, and I would download like a 1,200, 1,000 calorie, 1,200 calorie meal plan, and literally all it had was like 5 meals a day, chicken and broccoli, maybe it was like 100 grams of each, blah, blah, blah. So you didn't know any different, right? There was never a mention of flexible dieting. There was never anything like that. And the magazines at that time, if you grew up around like that kind of era too, like all of the headlines on there were always like, lose 10 pounds in blah, blah, blah. Or it's always glorifying, I guess, significant weight loss. It was always had the spotlight on a lot of celebrities for how their body looked. There was a lot of shaming over people for gaining any weight. So I think that was the time when you grow up and you're like, well, you had to look thin, because if these celebrities were on the headlining newspapers or headlining magazines and for gaining a tiny bit of weight, then what hope do we have, kind of thing. So that was back then. And now I think it's really cool that we do have experts in their fields, and we're so blessed that we have so many people here over the weekend actually speaking to you and educating you on how to do things the right way. So having that exposure to people now is going to save you guys so much like time, effort, energy on making a lot of mistakes. And a lot of us speak from a place of making mistakes in our pasts, but it's be like we've made those mistakes, and now we can actually educate you guys so that you don't have to do the same. Education on social media has definitely become a lot more prominent over the years. When I first started, there was not even video on Instagram. It was all just photos, and everyone just, like, there was not really anything to do with education. It was literally just photos. Photos of your abs. I just remember, like, you used to crop like that much of your body on the photo. There was no caption either. So it's definitely changed. And then I think with that though, everyone nowadays claims to be an expert, which I think for people who are new into the industry, it's really hard, or who are new into their journey, it's really hard to know like who to believe, who to trust and whatnot, because everyone claims to have the secret or the best way of doing things or blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a double-edged sword. There is a lot of information out there, but at the same time, it's not always the best information.